Let's invite in somebody who can talk about elections all over the country, and that is former Democrat turned Republican, now running for the governor of Georgia, Vernon Jones. Vernon, thank you so much for being on the show tonight. Curious your thoughts. Why do you think Joe Scarborough blew a gasket over the Arizona audit?
Well, it's a cover-up. They don't want the truth to come out. They don't want the facts to come out that Joe Biden and several of these states did not win the election. There was really issues and irregularities with our voting system and our voting process. And Georgia is one of those examples. Thankfully, today, a judge ruled that they're going to allow for a real forensic audit in one of our counties, Fulton County, the one that we most had some concerns about. But not only that, there are undisputed constitutional violations here. For example, in Georgia, Stacey Abrams met in the back room, cut a deal, came up with Stacey's law, convinced the governor, Governor Brian Kemp, and the Secretary of State to allow us to change through Stacey's law verification of signatures. Well, everybody knows that only the legislature have the ability to change state election laws. But Stacey's law was used in the 2020 and 2021 elections. And not only that, when you look at absentee ballots coupled with the drop-off boxes, there was nothing in our state law about drop-off boxes. So those audits will be able to go through and show the policies and procedures that was followed, and not to mention the several hundred thousands of ballots where there was no chain of custody. So we're excited to hear this. And why don't they want to see what happened? They pushed Russia for 3 years, almost 4 years, because they want to do deep dive investigations. Why not on election integrity? Who can lose on election integrity but losers?
Vernon, you know, I was fortunate to spend a lot of time in your state leading up to the 2020 election. I got to speak with a lot of Georgians, saw you out on the campaign trail quite a bit at a lot of rallies. And, you know, I did hear from a lot of Georgians that they were concerned about the election. They weren't sure if they were going to vote because they didn't trust what was going on. Do you feel like anything has shifted since then? Has confidence grown in your state in regards to future elections?
Well, confidence has decreased with Governor Brian Kemp. Why? Because he cut and ran on election integrity. He cut and ran on Donald Trump. So you're seeing his numbers dwindle, just fall at an increasing rate. At the same time, remember, Georgians, at least half of them feel as though that there was something not right. They just want clarity. Why is it that no one in the liberal media wants them to have clarity? If there are no issues, fine. But if there are issues, isn't it something we want to know so we can put to rest a lot of these unanswered questions? And we see our Secretary of State and the governor who said, hey, there's nothing wrong with our elections. Well, why did they come out and pass some additional legislation, which really codified some of Stacey's law, like the drop-off boxes? We weren't used to having any drop-off boxes.
I want to ask you about that point. You know, even though there was so much consternation about these election reforms in Georgia, particularly from woke corporations in Georgia and all over the country, I really believe it was weak sauce. This is not enough, the reforms that have been instituted, to step in the right direction, but you can still vote by mail for any reason at all. There still are going to be drop boxes. What do you think needs to be done to get real election reforms and true election integrity in the state of Georgia?
First of all, that's the purpose of having a forensic audit. You can look at what went right and what went wrong according to the Constitution. Let's put this on the Constitution. What was valid, what was not valid. And then where you had different county electors, or I should say election supervisors, they were following different rules. They didn't know whether to follow Stacey's law or to follow the state statute, state law. And so this would be a roadmap on where we can go in the future and look and see where it went wrong. But I can tell you this, there's a dead cat on the end of that line. The Secretary of State doesn't want you to know about it. Brian Kemp doesn't want you to know about it. And clearly the liberal media do not want you to know about it. Why? Because they're about to blow their tops like Joe Scarborough, which should be late night Joe and not early morning Joe. And he's just an extension of those who don't want to get to the facts.
Vernon, I know you're running for governor. Are you going to be out on the campaign trail at all? Are you going to be going to any of these rallies that are coming up?
Well, we would never stop campaigning on election integrity and going to rallies and talking to people across this great state. And I can tell you right now, they know who cut and ran on Donald Trump, and they know who stood with Donald Trump. When our governor was sitting on the sidelines for election integrity and providing some level of confidence and vote of confidence in our elections, he was hiding. He couldn't come out. Why? Because his hands were on it. He didn't call a special election. He didn't do some other things. But I stood on the front line when he was on the sideline, and you're aware of that, many others. I was one of the first. As a matter of fact, I was a Democrat, conservative Democrat. I did more to stand up for the president and fight for our people in Georgia than Republicans did, the governor, lieutenant governor, and the Secretary of State. And so that's why people supported me. They want a fighter. They want someone who want to get to the bottom of what happened in this election. And I can assure you, even if they're not willing to get rid of the current voting system because of the concerns about it, that's going to be one of my first initiatives. We're going to make sure that, first of all, there's clarity. We know that we're following state law. We're not going to fall and cave into Stacey Abrams and the liberal left as if they can just come in and do what they want to do with our election laws. And wasn't she the one who screamed foul about election fraud when she lost her election, drastically lost her election? But the liberal media wouldn't allow you to believe that. They would think allow you to think she's a governor. But she should be right here with me, fighting with me and other Georgians on election integrity. That's the hypocrisy in Stacey Abrams. They can't play the race card on me. And you know what? The liberal media wants to try to help Brian Kemp. They're having a love fest with him. Why? Because he can't beat Stacey Abrams. I can't.
Well, you can come on our show anytime, Vernon Jones. You come on over, and we'll be glad to have you on. Thanks so much for being with us tonight.
Jenna.